Let's move on to Glasgow. Jason, you were one of the 18 backbenchers on a Zoom call with the Prime Minister and Treasurer Josh Frydenberg on September 28, where you were pushing for this outcome. At the time, the Nationals weren't on board yet. Is this the outcome you were looking for, or were you hoping for other, more concrete targets on the way to 2050?
No, this was the target. This was the outcome we were looking for. We wanted I think what we've done is we've created.
So if Scott Morrison loses the next election, he can blame you.
Indeed, I will take all the blame. Thank you, Shari. I'm sure you'll ascribe all the blame anyway. But I will be earning my new nickname Meta. So anyway.
But seriously, though, Barnaby Joyce today said the Prime Minister would have gone ahead with net zero even if the Nationals didn't agree. Is that what the Prime Minister said to you on that call?
No, the Prime Minister didn't say. I mean, look, I shouldn't discuss private conversations I had with the Prime Minister, but I will say he didn't say that on the call. That is something he didn't say. Barnaby obviously had his own discussions with the Prime Minister. I think the important thing, though, that what we did was by setting a target, we created a framework that gave the private sector the incentives that they required and the framework that they required to make the investments that are necessary to get us to net zero by 2050 as cheaply, effectively and efficiently as possible. And, seizing a lot of opportunities that are available to Australia. I know Meryl in her community has Tamago aluminium smelter. There's massive opportunities with clean aluminium.
Okay. Look, another key moment at the G20 has been Prime Minister meeting with Macron for the first time, as captured by the Prime Minister's photographer. The problem, of course, is how Australia dumped its deal with France to buy their submarines in favour of the US and UK AUKUS deal, nuclear subs. Joe Biden has publicly called Australia clumsy for how it handled this announcement with the French, and he claims he didn't know that France hadn't been brought into the loop. Have a look.
What we did was clumsy. It was not done with a lot of grace. I was under the impression that France had been informed long before that the deal was not going through. I, honest to God, did not know you had not been.
Scott Morrison, for his part, maintains that the United States was aware every step of the way about where the negotiations were up to with France. Meryl, who is telling the truth here? Is this Biden lying or Morrison?
No, look, I think that what the President of the United States has said is actually really very kind in describing it as clumsy. If someone gets sacked via text, people are horrified. They're like, oh my goodness, they could have had the decency to phone you. Now, I do think that France plays a pivotal role in the Indo-Pacific. We've all known that for many decades. And I do think it's very, very disappointing that this wasn't more carefully and astutely and more considerately handled by our government and particularly by the Prime Minister. I mean, why didn't he pick up the phone and have a conversation with President Macron? And now we are going to have a lot of legwork to do to get the French back trusting us. And I think that, Joe Biden, he clearly didn't know that it was a text exchange. And I think he's the sort of person that would have picked up the phone. And it's just disappointing that our Prime Minister didn't think that was the way to do it. Normally I think he'd be pretty personable.
Well, I think there's no question that this was handled clumsily at the very least. But Jason, I mean, it doesn't appear that Biden is telling the truth when he says he had no idea that France was out of the loop, when Scott Morrison said the US had been kept informed at every step of the way.
Yeah, that's right, Shari. I think the French are being, how do I put it, less than fulsome in their approach to this. I mean, he has an election in April next year. The French love their president beating up.
We're talking about Biden here.
Americans.
We're talking about Biden. We're talking about Biden.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look, I'm just telling you what was in the public sphere, which is that the French have been told that their program, the submarine program, was behind schedule, behind budget, or over budget, that there were concerns on our side. That Biden would have known all of that. The American side would have known all of that. for the French to claim that this came as a surprise, I mean, you and I, Meryl, we all saw those reports in the media.
No,
I think that's
I just don't agree with you there on that, Jason. I just do not. I flatly do not agree with that. You know, I really don't. I think that it's quite possible for the president to have not been informed, even if other people may have had some idea things weren't going in the right direction. But to call it off via text, I think that's pretty sloppy.
Yeah, that is
don't forget the Prime Minister did put a call into President Macron, which he chose not to take. So, I mean,
Yeah, but that was after the event, Jason.